Hi, I'm the plant propagator and welcome to my channel. Today I'm in the laboratory and we're going to be doing some burlap orchids today. These have been, I've really liked doing this in the past. I've had really some nice successes with both the orchid growth after deflasking onto the burlap and even survival of some of these orchids in the trees. So what I want to share with you is I want to share with you again how I prepare these burlap orchids, and we're going to be doing some new ones today. Some of the burlap orchids that I have, Burlap Phals, which is my favorite, which work out really well, and I have some Burlap Phals that we're going to be doing, and then I also have some burlap, I think I'm going to call them burlap Guars. Guarianthe aurentiaca is what we have. And the reason that I'm doing the Guarianthe aurentiaca is because I've got a couple of flasks of the Guarianthes that are contaminated. So rather than just toss the flasks, which is what I normally do, I am going to deflask these orchids onto burlap. We're making a lot of them today, and I have a plan for some of them, but not all of them. So some of these things I actually want to take to a commercial orchid grower and see whether there's any interest in the orchid growing community for people buying these things in some of the local orchid houses. So we'll try them and see how it goes. And like I said, I don't know how this is going to be perceived. They work well. They're very easy to mount, and let's see if the general public is as enamored with them as I am. All right, so what do we do? How do we make these things? The first thing is to cut the burlap. So I bought this burlap from a craft store, and I buy them in rolls, and the rolls are about I guess they're about 6 inches wide, and then it's a long roll, and then these things are cut into maybe about 3-inch pieces. And I think it's important, what I'm doing right now, I think it's important to kind of wash them really well, and what I like to do is essentially wring them out like this. So that this is hot. This is hot water. And so I think there is some kind of residue on the burlap, and I'm really careful in trying to make sure that whatever was on here is appropriately wrung out. These things tend to fall apart a little bit, as I'm showing you here. What you can't see in the sink is all of this residue as these things kind of fall apart. And that's okay, because when we mount this on the trees, we just want a few of the orchids. We want them to stick to the tree, and then we want the burlap actually to degrade and fall away, which is what I'm seeing. So the interesting thing about putting these on the trees is that they do, in my opinion, things do really well. The interesting thing, all right, what I was about to tell you is that I think these guys around my house have done really well, and I'll try to splice in some images of how some of these Burlap Phals are doing. The burlap dems, I should say, are also doing well, but the Burlap Phals, my wife commented me the other day that when I told her I was going to do this today and do more of them, she says, I looked at them, they're not doing anything, and the reality of it is the orchids don't look like they're doing much. But what you look for is the roots that are growing outside of the burlap, above, below, left, and right. And that's really where you can see the growth. And so the ones that, again, I have at the trees in my house, you can see a lot of root growth that's coming out from behind the burlap, and it's growing along the side of the tree, which is what you want. And that for me is pretty exciting. Okay, that's enough for now. Let me put these on the side so we can do some and see how these go. All right, so what I want to do first is deflask. Let's do some phals first. Let's do some burlap phals, because I've done these in the past and these plants look awesome. These have been in this container for a long time. So these, I'm looking at the date on here, and these have been in this container for about 7 months, which is a long time. And these look really phenomenal. The roots are growing well, the leaves are dark green, and they look pretty good too. And the way when you deflask any of the orchids, you carefully pull them out, and what you do, the next step, and what you do is try to get the medium off. The interesting things with phals that I've seen is that with the cats, and we'll look at the other cattleyas in a second, the roots go throughout the medium here. With the phals, the roots don't tend to do that. They just kind of, I mean, look at this. That just fell right off, which is really interesting. Not all of it, but most of it. All right, so there's more here. So the roots, for some reason, this medium that they're in, the roots aren't doing as well. They don't grow through the medium, and it's a little bit of a different situation. This medium that I've developed here that I use is not, I'm going to turn this on, hopefully it won't drown me out. But the medium that these orchids are growing on has been kind of optimized for the cattleyas. And I have a colleague, and I'm so excited about this, I have a colleague who works on phals that sent me his phal medium, and I am Phalaenopsis medium, and I'm so excited to try his medium. It's got a little bit of a different medium components, and I'm going to try it. So I'm going to probably make that medium next week and try it, and I'll kind of keep you updated what's there. We exchanged medium formulations, so I told him he couldn't release my formulation, and I told him I wouldn't release his, so I just want to try it. There's some little bit of a different medium components to it, so we'll see. All right, so anyway, what I'm starting to do here, I rinsed all of the old medium off, and you got to make sure you do it pretty thoroughly, and I'm losing some small babies, and I don't want them to go down the drain here. But these, even though they're small, they're good enough, so we'll kind of temporarily put them here. But some of these guys, you pull, these things come apart like crazy, but look at this. I mean, these are nice. That's a nice plant. And some of the ones that I have here in my other hand are even bigger. And the idea behind this, I'm just going to kind of get all of these separated as best as I can. These aren't cats. They fall right apart. The cats would be intertwined. I'm not putting them on the burlap yet. I'm just kind of placing them in the container. It's like these two guys might be, they fell apart. But you got to make sure that all of the black charcoal containing medium is moved and rinsed off of these roots. So that's what I'm doing here. There are some small ones that may not be worth saving, but we'll just try them anyway. That's not, sorry, not worth saving. Okay, but I'm going to just really quickly pull these apart, and we'll keep on filming, and I might just speed through this. Okay, and we are now done with at least this first batch. I do want to point out a couple of plants, and this is a cross that I made. I don't know what the parents were on this. I have images of the flowers, but some of the leaves on this plant are really dark underneath, which is interesting. Some leaves actually on a few of the plants, but some are light and some are dark. So there's some diversity to. This is what you get when you breed orchids. There's diversity to the colors that you're going to get from these plants. And here's the monster. So this is just, look at how big this plant is. And what I've seen when I've done these in the past, and this is out of a flask, so this will even get bigger pretty quickly. This I might put on a piece of burlap on its own. All right. So what you do on this is just simply take the phals, if you can, and just try to poke as many roots through the burlap as possible. So there, and in the past, what I've done is put 3 orchids, 3 phals on a piece of burlap, but I don't know if I don't know if 3 phals are too much. So right here, what I did is I stuck 2 roots. Now I stuck 2 and then 1 came out. So, and this is a little tedious, but that's okay. So I've got 2 roots that I stuck in from this phal on this piece of burlap, and then I'm going to pick another plant. I'm trying to get some size differences between these guys. Okay, and so here's another one, and I may go back and shove some more roots. There's a lot of roots on this one, but I'm trying to shove them in there to kind of anchor them a little bit, but it's not needed. The roots will grow on these plants, will grow quickly enough so that they should anchor themselves down pretty nicely. All right, so here's another one, and so we put 2 on that one. We'll try to put 2. Those roots just slipped right through, and we just keep on going like that, just to get them somewhat anchored in place. But like I said, what happens, the roots are the first thing to grow on these deflasked orchids. So again, what I did is I just shoved a couple of roots through, and then we put them here. All right, so here's a tiny one, and maybe with a small one we can put 3 of them on. You know, I'm going to try not. We're going too slow so let's try, well, I mean, we just try some things differently. So I just laid those last 2 on there, and then again, we're just trying to anchor them in place, and they grow on their own and they find their way. And I'm struggling to do this quickly. So I'm just going to do this last one, and then we're going to move on to the next orchid type. Okay, so again, what we have here, and I might have to go back and straighten some of these guys out and put some more roots in. So we've got these that have been kind of distributed not as well as I'd like, so I may go back and make sure the roots are shoved in, and these are just sitting on the top. And so I'll go back. That's another big one. Oh my gosh. So I might go back and set up some more of these. But so from the 1 flask, we probably ended up with 10 of these ribbons of burlap that are going to have phals on it, and they grow literally quickly from week to week. So I think that by next week we'll see some roots that are growing out of the base and they'll do well. So I did these. I'm going to go back and do these, but I want to put these on the side and then go back and show you the other orchid that we're going to deflask on to the burlap. Okay, so let's get another container. And what I'm going to do here, and we'll see how this goes, these are Guarianthe aurentiaca. These were growing really quickly, but again, the problem is I've got contamination in this flask, and I've got actually a dish here, and there's contamination in this dish. But you can see what the growth of the roots, so these are going to be harder to get apart, but you can see what the growth of these look like. These were growing pretty quickly. These were placed in this medium 2 months ago. So that's the mark right here. I only know that because of the mark on the dish. So these were placed as very small seedlings in here 2 months ago, and look at all and the roots weren't like that. It's incredible growth. So these things grew quickly. What I did then last week is I put I put the contents of this, I drug it out and put them in here, but there was a contamination in here that I didn't see, so that contamination has grown out on a new plate. This was one that I was going to put in a new flask. This one I was going to put in a new flask, and I opened this up, and then I could see the contamination that was on the outside of this dish. So these are growing really quickly. And this contaminant that's in this flask hasn't really done any damage yet, so I can pull this out and clean off the roots. And then we'll see how they go. The other thing that I should say is that after I deflask these orchids and put them on the burlap, I spray them, and I'm not sure if it's I'm not sure how helpful it is, but I spray them with Physan 20 as a general fungicide, and I've done this and it keeps them in check. All right, so let's just pull this stuff out, and I can tell this is not going to go well. These are small plants, and this is what I did. All right, so this is what slid out. I slid out of the dish just a few days ago, and then put into that flask, and then this contamination that I didn't see before then grew out, and it grew really quickly. So let's wash this stuff off. And see what we get. And when you do this, you gotta be careful that the medium doesn't clog the drain, and that I don't lose any of my orchids. Okay, so you can see what's going on here. These are small. These are really small. I'm not sure. Well, we're going to try it. So the only, I mean, what else we could have done with these orchids is just autoclaved them and tossed them. That's the other thing. I mean, that was their other fate. So these are really tiny for deflasking. And you want to make sure, again, that you get as much of the medium off the roots as possible. And I'm feeling this, that's a little too hot. But like I said, these are small, and they're stuck together because I think they'll fit in here nicely because they're cattleyas. So I'm kind of trying to tease them apart a little bit. And here's our contamination here. I'm trying to get rid of that. It is a mat of orchid roots, and this is how it was growing in the plate, and that's what the next plate I think is going to look like. But you just tease them apart a little bit, and broke a root off. It's okay. Here's another one. Like I said, these are really small, but we'll see how they go. There's two more here. And if I struggle to pull them apart too much, they are going on. I'm not opposed to just planting that just as intact. So there's two babies there. Okay, this one came apart pretty easily. Gonna make sure it's washed off properly. This is a really small one. So when the orchids are this small, again, the only option for these guys is that they would be tossed. So rather than toss them, I'm going to try and see how they do in burlap. And I should know pretty quickly if they're going to fail or succeed. And it's also a little bit more challenging to tear these apart because they are so small. The easy ones, I think, are going to be a little bit easier to pull apart. And I think because of how I'm pulling them, I'm doing a lot more damage to the plants. This is a really tight mat. And you may be thinking to yourself, okay, should I? Oh, those are really together tightly. These things are together so tightly and the plants are so small that I'm just going to put them down here together and see how they do. I'm showing you how I do this, and I'm making a video, but I also want to make it clear, and I think it should be clear. I've never done this before. This is my first deflasking of this Guarianthe species. So I don't know. This is my first deflasking of this Guarianthe on burlap. So I don't know whether this is going to work. But I'm just trying it. And that's why we do this stuff. That's why you do science, in order to see if it works or not. If it doesn't work, I'll share that with you. I think what we'll probably get is some slow orchid growth because these guys are so small. But like I said, it's better than, I think that's just a mass of roots. But it's better than just throwing them out. Okay, so there's that right there. And I think there's just two more plants here that we'll put on their own piece of burlap. Okay, so that's all I have. Again, these are tiny, and we'll see how they go. The phals, I know those are going to work, and those are going to do well. These guys, I'm not even sure I want to stick their roots down into the burlap. I think we're just going to let them sit on top of the burlap like this and then see if the roots grow out. I'll keep an eye on it. Just so you know, what I'll do is I spray these with Phalaenopsis. I put the lid on the top of the container like this, seal it up, and they stay in here. Typically they stay in here for a month, but these guys are so small it may be a couple of months. These guys will also need to be fertilized, and normally I don't do that too much, but because these plants are so small, I'm going to have to fertilize them. And they are tiny, but we'll see what happens. All right, that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed my video. This is real science. I don't know whether the Guarianthe aurentiaca is going to work. The Phalaenopsis I know will work, but we'll see how it goes. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you like my video and you want to keep on seeing them, it would help me out if you could click on like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. All right, that's all I have for today. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, and happy propagating.